In 2020, the U.S. Navy believed it had found a simple solution for its next generation of small warships. The plan for the Constellation-class frigates was straightforward: adopt a proven European design and build it in American shipyards. According to a New York Times editorial, the design was based on the Italian Bergamini frigate. The Navy intended to make limited modifications, including replacing the weapons systems with American ones, modifying the ship's radar and onboard electronics, installing a more powerful hybrid engine, upgrading the propellers, and lengthening the hull by about 24 feet to accommodate a larger engine. According to the New York Times editorial, the ship's weight was expected to increase by about 1,400 tons, but the design was still expected to remain stable and low risk. Instead, continual design changes overwhelmed shipbuilders and suppliers. By 2025, the Navy had modified 85% of the original design, and the ship was still unfinished. On November 25, the Pentagon cancelled the Constellation program entirely. After spending $3.5 billion, not a single ship had been delivered. A pattern of industrial failure. The collapse of the Constellation project is not an isolated case. Over the past 35 years, the U.S. Navy has commissioned more than 6 new classes of ships, ranging from small combat vessels to large destroyers. Nearly all of them exceeded their budgets by billions of dollars, were delivered years behind schedule, and failed to meet performance expectations. The military aviation sector has suffered similar problems. Producing a combat-ready jet, ship, or tank now takes an average of 12 years, while the Air Force is retiring aircraft faster than it can replace them. The result is a military that still relies heavily on platforms designed during the Reagan era. The U.S. defense industry, like most of its other industrial sectors, has lost the ability to build complex systems quickly and reliably. Falling behind China, these shortcomings have strategic consequences. China has embarked on one of the largest peacetime military expansions in history. It now operates the world's largest navy, with more than 370 warships compared to 296 for the United States. Beijing has deployed multiple types of hypersonic anti-ship missiles, while the United States has deployed none. China's advantage is not only technological but also industrial. It produces more than 3 warships for every one produced by the United States, and about 200 commercial ships for every American ship. Speed, scale, and capacity increasingly favor Beijing. As military planners often warn, industrial capacity itself constitutes a form of deterrence. If the United States cannot sustain production during a prolonged war, its adversaries may be more willing to take risks. Consolidation and declining competition. One major reason for this decline lies in the structure of the defense industry. Since the early 1990s, consolidation has reduced the number of major defense contractors from more than 50 companies to just 5: Lockheed Martin, RTX, General Dynamics, Northrop Grumman, and Boeing. These firms, known as prime contractors, have mastered government procurement processes but are ill-suited for rapid, large-scale production. Shielded from competition, they face little pressure to innovate or control costs. At the same time, thousands of small suppliers and machine shops that once formed the backbone of the defense supply chain have disappeared. Modern warfare, as seen in Ukraine, increasingly rewards the mass production of affordable systems. Cheap drones have successfully neutralized tanks, helicopters, and even naval fleets. The U.S. industrial base, optimized for expensive systems, is struggling to adapt. The slow collapse of shipbuilding. The decline of American shipbuilding began decades ago. In 1980, the United States had more than 300 commercial shipyards producing dozens of ships annually, supported by federal subsidies. In the early 1980s, those subsidies were eliminated as part of efforts to shrink the government. Shipyards lost private sector customers, tens of thousands of workers lost their jobs, and foreign competitors captured the market. The Constellation project collided with this reality. Despite the Navy's choice of a proven European design and an experienced shipyard owned by the Italian company Fincantieri, labor shortages and fragile supply chains proved decisive. Constant design changes required machinists, welders, electricians, and pipefitters, workers already in short supply. Costs rose, schedules slipped, and the program collapsed. When the Navy cancelled the project, Fincantieri Marinette Marine laid off 93 workers. The Navy says it may still purchase the two partially built ships, though delivery would not occur for at least 3 more years. A worsening labor crisis. The labor challenge is expected to intensify. The total workforce in the U.S. shipbuilding industry is about 150,000 people, but contractors say they will need an additional 140,000 workers over the next decade just to meet submarine demand. Hiring is difficult, as wages often barely compete with those in the service sector. As Secretary of the Navy John Felon acknowledged in November, the problem is fundamentally about pay. What fixing the system requires. Reversing decades of industrial decline takes a full generation, but national security does not allow such a luxury. The United States currently spends about 3.4% of GDP on defense, down from nearly 5% in 2010 and more than 9% in 1967. Even a modest increase focused on manufacturing capacity could have outsized effects. Congress has begun restoring shipbuilding subsidies and funding workforce programs. Over the past decade, the Pentagon has spent nearly $6 billion to strengthen the industrial base, while companies have partnered with technical colleges and created training academies. These efforts need to be expanded. Lawmakers are also considering legislation to increase the U.S. commercial fleet by 250 ships over a decade, strengthening both economic and military logistics. Beyond the major defense contractors, subsidies alone will not solve the problem. Since the early 1990s, the U.S. Navy has spent $700 billion on shipbuilding, yet its fleet has shrunk by 45%. The Pentagon still relies excessively on the same contractors, who captured 86% of major program spending in 2024. Efforts to diversify suppliers have largely disappointed. Programs aimed at rapidly acquiring thousands of low-cost drones have failed due to complex regulations, unstable funding, and limited authorities. Many innovative companies abandon defense work altogether, unable to navigate thousands of pages of acquisition rules. Easing procurement regulations and bridging the gap between prototyping and production would allow startups to compete and scale. Risks extending beyond defense. The Trump administration acknowledged these failures, announcing investments in shipbuilding and drone manufacturing and ordering reforms to Pentagon procurement. The fate of these plans after congressional scrutiny remains uncertain. The risks extend beyond the military sector. Defense production has long generated broad economic benefits, contributing to the rise of industries ranging from aviation and satellites to robotics and Silicon Valley itself. A stronger, faster, and more competitive defense industrial base would not only make the United States safer, it would also make it more prosperous and better prepared for a world in which industrial power once again shapes the global balance of power.